This is Land of Havilah, Luke 8b. Jesus calmed the storm on the sea, and when they arrived on the opposite shore, verse 26, they arrived at the country of the Gadarenes, which is opposite Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, a certain man out of the city who had demons for a long time met him. Comment: this account's also in Matthew and Mark. As soon as Jesus stepped out of the boat, immediately, Mark says, a man possessed by demons met them. Luke and Mark mention just one man, but Matthew says there were two. Perhaps only one of them was making much of a disturbance. The man had a habit of accosting everyone he saw, quote, so that nobody could pass that way, Matthew 8:28. He was exceedingly fierce, Matthew 8:28. Luke continues, still in verse 27. He wore no clothes and didn't live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, "What do I have to do with you, Jesus, you Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." For Jesus was commanding the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Comment: Luke gave it in reverse order. In the order that it happened, first the man met them, then Jesus started commanding the evil spirit to come out, then the demon responded by begging Jesus to leave him alone. Jesus knew all things, John 16:30, therefore he knew there was more than one demon, so why did he command only one to come out? Quote, Jesus was commanding the evil spirit to come out of the man, end quote. Maybe Jesus was addressing only one demon because that demon was the chief of the rest, and if he had to leave, he'd take the rest with him. We see here that demons have a strong desire to inhabit a person and not be forced out. Demons know who Jesus is, Luke 4:41, quote, they knew he was the Christ, end quote. Here in the account of the Gadarene demoniac, they also knew who he was, quote, Jesus, you Son of the Most High God, end quote. And Luke 4:34, a demon said, I know who you are, the Holy One of God. James 2:19 says, the demons also believe and shudder, end quote. They know Christ's authority over them. Speaking of the demon and the man he inhabited, still in verse 29, for the unclean spirit had often seized the man. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and fetters. Breaking the bonds apart, he was driven by the demon into the desert. Comment: Mark adds, nobody had the strength to tame him, end quote. But it was more than strength. It was also a disregard for his personal safety. Quote, always night and day he was crying out and cutting himself with stones, Mark 5:5. So with strength to break chains and fetters and a disregard for his own safety, nobody could restrain the man. But now the demon in the man is begging Jesus, don't torment me. Jesus can restrain the demon. It's richly ironic that the demon doesn't want to be tormented after all the tormenting he's done. Verse 30. Jesus asked him, what is your name? He said Legion, for many demons had entered into him. Comment: a Roman legion's about 5,000 soldiers, so legion indicates very many. Verse 31. They begged him that he would not command them to go into the abyss. Comment: abyss is Greek abyssos, which is a boundless or bottomless place or pit. The word appears once in Luke, once in Romans, and 7 times in Revelation. The abyss is a place of torment, and torment comes out of it on men to the earth. Heaven has key to it and authority over it, Revelation 9:1-11. The beast originates from it, Revelation 11:7. Satan will be shut up in it, Revelation 20, verse 3. The demons are begging that Jesus won't send them into the abyss, and verse 32. Now there was there a herd of many pigs feeding on the mountain. Comment: about 2,000 of them, Mark 5:13, still in verse 32. And they begged him that he would allow them to enter into those. Comment: a demon needs permission to enter even a pig. Let's not give permission to any demon to enter. Quote, sin no more so that nothing worse happens to you, John 5:14. As to whether Jesus allowed them to enter the pigs, still in verse 32, he allowed them. The demons came out of the man and entered into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. When those who fed them saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. People went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who saw it told them how he who had been possessed by demons was healed. All the people of the surrounding country of the Gadarenes asked him to depart from them, for they were very much afraid. He entered into the boat and returned. But the man from whom the demons had gone out begged him that he might go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your house and declare what great things God has done for you." He went his way, proclaiming throughout the whole city what great things Jesus had done for him. Comment: the pig herders, those who fed them, it says, went and told everything, and people came out to see. They were afraid, it says in verse 35, and very afraid in verse 37. Therefore they asked Jesus to go away. The loss of 2,000 pigs was an economic blow, and there was no telling what else the cost might be if they invite Jesus in. Jesus could have healed all their sick and driven out all their demons like he did in Galilee and given them eternal life, but there would be a cost. Count the cost, he said, Luke 14:28. Whatever the cost would be, it would be worth it. But far too often people don't calculate the cost correctly. If they would count correctly, they'd know his benefits are much more than the cost. The man wanted to go with Jesus, but Jesus sent him away to preach what God had done for him. On other occasions, Jesus told people to be quiet and tell no one what he had done for them, Luke 8:56 and 9:21. But here he said the opposite, no explanation given. But it did say above that the demons had driven him out of his home and into the tombs, into the countryside, so the man returning to his home was a testimony in and of itself. So being disinvited, Jesus and his disciples got back in the boat and returned to Galilee. As it turned out, Jesus crossed the sea in the first place and put his disciples through a storm to heal that one man or two men. Verse 40. When Jesus returned, the multitude welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. Behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue. He fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him to come into his house. For he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. But as he went, the multitudes pressed against him. A woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her living on physicians and could not be healed by any, came behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak, and immediately the flow of her blood stopped. Comment, quote, whenever he entered into villages or into cities or into the country, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might just touch the fringe of his garment, and as many as touched him were made well, Mark 6:56. And Matthew 14:36, speaking also of his robe, quote, as many as touched it were made whole, end quote. And Luke 6:19, quote, all the multitude sought to touch him, for power came out of him and healed them all, end quote. And speaking of this woman, Matthew 9:29 says, quote, she said within herself, if I just touch his garment, I will be made well, end quote. So she touched the fringe of his cloak. She wasn't the first. And verse 45. Jesus said, who touched me? When all denied it, Peter and those with him said, Master, the multitudes press and jostle you, and you say, who touched me? But Jesus said, someone did touch me, for I perceive that power has gone out of me. When the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason why she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. He said to her, daughter, cheer up, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Comment, he didn't say my garment has made you well. A lot of people were touching his garment. He said, your faith has made you well. Everyone was touching him and pressing in and jostling, but someone touched him with faith. We don't ordinarily feel anything when we stop bleeding, but the woman felt something. It doesn't say what. She knew she was healed immediately. She wanted to escape unnoticed, but when she wasn't hidden, she came trembling. He told her, cheer up, you're well, go in peace. If God has benefited us, we should come forward. As Jesus said earlier in the chapter, no one, when he has lit a lamp, covers it with a container or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a stand, that those who enter in may see the light. For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor anything secret that will not be known and come to the light." End quote. We might be embarrassed, and the reason for coming to Jesus might be embarrassing, but if power went out to us, we should tell it. Going back a few verses, Jesus was going through the streets on his way to Jairus' house at the time. Jairus was a ruler of the synagogue. His only daughter, about 12 years of age, was dying. He came to Jesus, fell down at his feet, and begged him to come to his house. When Jesus stopped to deal with the woman, Jairus was waiting and watching. While Jesus was still speaking to the woman and Jairus was still standing there, verse 49, while he still spoke, one from the ruler of the synagogue's house came, saying to him, "Your daughter is dead. Don't trouble the teacher." Comment: we shouldn't hesitate to trouble the teacher. Verse 50. But Jesus, hearing it, answered him, "Don't be afraid, only believe and she will be healed." When he came to the house, he didn't allow anyone to enter in except Peter, John, James, the father of the child, and her mother. All were weeping and mourning her, but he said, "Don't weep. She isn't dead, but sleeping." They were ridiculing him, knowing that she was dead. Comment: we might know the facts as they are, but we can't know what Jesus might do with them. Verse 54. But he put them all outside. Comment: the mockers won't see anything. Still in verse 54. And taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." Her spirit returned, and she rose up immediately. He commanded that something be given to her to eat. Her parents were amazed, but he commanded them to tell no one what had been done. Comment: the woman was healed of her hemorrhage because of her faith, but the girl didn't arise because of anyone's faith. They were amazed. He did exceedingly above all that they could ask or think, Ephesians 3:20. Because of the crowds, Jesus and his disciples, quote, could not so much as eat bread, Mark 3:20. On the way to the house, they were pressing in and jostling. So the crowds were already unmanageable, which might explain why he wanted the parents to stay quiet. He raised the young man in Nain very publicly in the last chapter, but he wants this one to be private. Luke 9 is next at landofhavilah.net, Luke 9.